I'm about to make mine, and I've been on a fast, so I'm going to make some eggs during the spaces as well.
Good deal. Fasting is good stuff. You're going to be fired up after some coffee now.
Right. Next level.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. Since you've been fasting, is the coffee going to hit you like a lot harder?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of like when you drink coffee or alcohol or anything like after you work out, it's just everything kind of hits you a little bit harder. You're all empty. Your body's, going to absorb everything when you give it to it.
All right, we're glad you're on then, Nick, because after that coffee, you're going to be fired up and ready to go in the conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, from a chart perspective, pTGC looks really good, and from a tokenomics perspective, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. I see these massive buys that are happening by the protocol, but then also I see that the DAO funds are being used for buy and burns too. So just speeding up that deflationary process. Like to see it.
Yeah, this week was a pretty good example of the machine, right? We had some sell pressure on the hex pairs in particular, and the machine used those sells to generate revenue and then bring that revenue back to the ecosystem. You could see like UFO really start to wake up with that. You could see pTGC really start to wake up with that. And obviously that's in the downwards direction. In the future, what we're hoping is we get that volatility and that volume, but also with the upside appreciation of the things we're connected to.
Yeah, very true. This is the first time in a while we've kind of seen volatility between the blue chips, and that was due to a whale selling and the way he was rotating out of position. So, at least pTGC could capitalize on that, and he's out of the way, and hopefully that allows for some upside movement here on PulseChain and PLS.
Yeah, I think people tend to, which is normal, right? When PulseChain's been trending down for 6-7 months straight now, you tend to forget what kind of value generation happens when those blue chips start to move against each other. But even more, like what kind of value generation can happen and price appreciation happens when that they're moving against each other, but also moving to the upside, right? Like right now we're seeing the volatility, but we're still missing the key feature of to the upside.
You are correct. And I don't know if you've seen my PLS chart, but it kind of has a pretty textbook-looking bullish cup and handle, and it finished the cup, finished the handle, and now it's kind of the moment of truth to see if it can kind of break above that neckline. And if that happens, you're looking at another 30 to 60% rally out of PLS before that target's met, and it'll be really interesting to see what kind of multiple pTGC could do on that potential breakout.
What are you thinking for ETH, Nick?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been a good
amount of room to run.
Yeah, I was pretty early to predicting that the Ethereum strategic reserve narrative would kind of take the crypto market by storm. That was when it was just PulseChain, Coinbase, and that was it. And then we know Sharplink Gaming's bought like 300,000 ETH. BitMine's bought 300,000 ETH. Another Bitcoin miner's bought 100,000 ETH. So, I mean, the macro is really good for Ethereum. I think at some point we will stall and get slapped a bit, 10% dip. But I think what you're going to see in ETH here is a slow grind higher like we saw out of Bitcoin. When every dip that happens, you're going to have, instead of Michael Saylor buying the dip or GameStop buying the dip, you're going to have Sharplink Gaming and Thomas Lee and Joe Lubin buying the dip. And Ethereum is a much thinner order book than it is for Bitcoin. It's like 1/4 the size. So it takes a lot less economic power to drive that up. So I think Ethereum is looking really good. I think the Ethereum outperformance of Bitcoin continues. And I think Ethereum is going to surprise a lot of people to the upside. It was not long ago when I was on these spaces and PulseChain spaces and PulseChain mastermind groups where people were hoping for Ethereum 4,000 or 5,000 as a top. And it's like, that is not even getting started now when you factor in these Ethereum strategic reserves and the size allocations they're talking about buying. They're talking about, Thomas Lee's talking about 5% of total supply. Sharplink Gaming's talking about 1 million Ethereum. I mean, that is massive amounts, and that means they would have to triple their positions for each of those companies alone. And if you start to look at previous history of Ethereum versus Bitcoin charts, if it goes back to the previous high, you're looking at Ethereum prices of like $22,000 to $30,000 ETH if Bitcoin does a double from here. So pretty big numbers, and I can't even, begin to talk about what that could mean for PulseChain from a speculative perspective. that PulseChain SAC wallet, that'd be worth billions of dollars. And of course, a lot of people believe that Richard Hart owns a lot of personal Ethereum too. Well, he would have a lot of Ethereum, a lot of firepower, dry powder to potentially help PulseChain on its journey to glory.
Yeah, that definitely would. Now it's around, it's at the price it's at now, and it's worth over, I believe, 500 million. So, you can kind of just consider to appreciating.
You're breaking up a bit, Zen.
Yeah, let me go outside. I think this might be. Yeah, it was breaking up for me when Nick was talking as well.
Okay, we do have a question from YouTube also. JV Minor, can you hear me?
I hear you. Yeah.
Okay. He says, I've heard you speak about how ARB bots help the price of pTGC. Can you explain how that is?
Yes. We'll come back to the ETH thing. Just remind me that I kind of have something to say on that too.
Okay.
But how pTGC generates value off of our bots, and then how that value goes back to the pTGC price is this way. So pTGC is an index of the pTGC and UFO are indexes of the blue chips on chain, right? So we are connected with our assets to, let's say, 20 or more different assets. And as those assets move up and down every single day, they all create a different amount of price appreciation or price loss, right? But pTGC is the constant between all of them. So if Hex moves up 10% and PDI moves down 10%, there's going to be an ARB opportunity between those two assets. And a market maker is technically going to buy the cheap pTGC with PDI, and then it will sell the pTGC in the Hex pool until it brings the pTGC in those two liquidity pools back to an equilibrium price that no longer is profitable for them. So the RBot is technically trying to make revenue, and they are. But when they're making this trade, they're having to pay the pTGC fee. And then that fee goes back to the ecosystem. So in this example, let's imagine that the RBot had to move $10,000 to fix those two liquidity pools. So they would have to move $10,000. They'd have to buy $10,000 worth of pTGC in that cheap PDI pool, which the 5% fee on the $10,000 would be $500. So pTGC system generated $500 from this buy, and then they would go to the Hex pool and they would sell. And then that sell would also cost the RBot $500. So the pTGC system would generate $500 there as well. So the total amount of value generation in this example would be $1,000, right? And a portion of that value generation goes to the underlying value of the token, right? Let's say it's the DAO and the buy and burn. Let's say it's the DAO spending 100% on buy and burn and the automated function. Well, that's half. So half of that value is literally buying up the chart and burning it. So it would be $500 in this example. That's a constant buy pressure on the chart that never gets sold. And that's what helps the price appreciation of pTGC over time, right? You can look at it in just a 1 hour basis, and it's, a small amount. But when you add this up constantly throughout years, it really starts to make an impact, especially considering like where we are today. I think it's like $11,000 of pTGC has been bought and burnt in the last 24 hours. Well, you have to realize we believe pTGC is very, very cheap right now. So as the whole entire market revalues, like ETH, PulseChain, and pTGC, the tokens that the code is scooping up at these discounted levels revalues as well, but it never re-enters the system. So they're technically holders buying the token that will never sell the tokens again. Even if it does a 10x, 100x, 1000x, 10,000x, they never re-enter. So this helps with the price appreciation, is the utility that we're generating this revenue and injecting 100% of that revenue back in the chart. There's also more of it going in the chart than just that. even the APY that's paid out is actually bought out of the chart too. There's just the chance that the user sells that back in, but there's also the chance that that user hodls long term. So those are the things that are kind of helping the price move up, making value off of the arbitrage bots. Arbitrage bots do this on every single blockchain, even centralized exchanges. It's just usually the token and the holders of the token don't get the value. It's usually the LP providers, the DEX, or the centralized exchanges are the ones that get to generate revenue off of that. We've just kind of made it to where the token holder and the token gets to get some value as well.
Perfect answer.
Am I sounding better too?
Yeah, yeah, you're crystal clear. Do you want to run back to ETH again?
Yeah, so like I hear a lot of people even right now saying like, oh, I thought PulseChain was a leverage play on ETH and we see ETH moving up, but in this exact same day, PulseChain was moving down. Like what happened to Hart's Law? There's a couple things I want people to kind of remember is for one, PulseChain has a lot of LP with stable coins. So if 100% of the LP was with ETH, this would be more realistic because ETH would be dragging us up. But let's say it's only 25% of our LP is with ETH. Well, that means 75% of it is with stable coins. So the Hart's Law effect will be only 25% of PLS. But more importantly, what I like to look at is I go look at like the past data. And every time ETH has moved up, you can actually see in that range of time, PulseChain has moved up too. Because when ETH moves up, that literally means money is flowing into crypto. And a portion of that money, and it really needs to be a very small amount, usually does make its way to PulseChain as well, because money's flowing into risk-on assets. The same works the other direction, right? When ETH starts moving down or consolidating, that means money's flowing out of crypto, and a portion of it flows out of PulseChain as well. But when you actually look at it and you like overlay these charts on top of each other, in the past, you saw ETH move up, let's say 2x. This is over a year ago. In that same time period, we saw PulseChain move up 5x, right? So it is actually working off of like, in quotes, a leverage situation. It's just literally more how liquidity pools work and value flowing in and out of markets. But then again, there was another time where ETH consolidated and did like another 2x move. In this example, PulseChain moved up 3x as well. It's not on the exact days though, right? Sometimes it's lagging a little bit, like a week behind. Sometimes it's lagging a week ahead. They're not exactly correlated always on the same day. But the other interesting thing about that is we've also overlaid pTGC and UFO over these same time periods. And the time periods where ETH was doing 2x's and PulseChain was doing 4x's, pTGC was doing like 40x's. So, Nick was kind of bringing up that he thinks he's kind of ready to go. And just based on the past data of how these systems function, is if it's ETH's time to go, I personally think that means it's pTGC's time to go, UFO's time to go as well.
Yeah, and right now, the people that are saying that, they have to understand, A, I think you're right that there is a lag there. But B, I think this Ethereum strength is why PLS didn't go to a new low. At the same time, Ethereum is having billions of dollars poured into it and going into strategic reserves. We had a whale extracting 7-8 figures from the chain, So, and when the liquidity is as thin as it is right now for PulseChain, 10 million extraction is equivalent to over 1 billion extraction on Ethereum. So I think people need to keep that in mind as well. And I think the Ethereum strength is what prevented us from going to new lows while we had a massive whale selling millions and millions and millions of dollars of PulseChain assets and actually bridging it to Ethereum.
Good point.
Jay,
that definitely helped us absorb that for sure.
JB Miner has another I felt like a follow-up question. Is there thick enough liquidity with pTGC and other tokens on PulseChain to where our bots transactions route through pTGC? Is this a constant thing that we can see every day? And my simple answer is yes, but I would like for you to expand on it if you don't mind.
Yeah, so PulseX transactions will route through a pair or PTGC transactions will route through a pair if it makes financial sense for the routing, right? So what the R bots are looking for and what aggregators are technically looking for is a deal for the user. So in that specific pool, it makes sense for getting the user hex through our pool. It will rotate through that, but you have to keep in mind that usually the arbitrage bots are correcting prices before the aggregators are getting users to that profitable situation.
And the second part of that question was, I think, like, what size liquidity pool is best? And I guess the answer would be any size can work, but the bigger the better, the more likely chance that your pool could be chosen either for the aggregator or for the arbitrage bot to hit it, because it has a bigger gap and opportunity to make gains or to put you through cheaper.
Yeah, so and that's a good thing to bring up. I should tap more into that as well. Is like right now with pTGC and UFO, we've put a lot of focus on making these LP pools as large as possible. Where previously on other blockchains or even a lot of tokens on PulseChain as well, making their liquidity pools as big as could be is not like a number one priority because it does become more difficult to lift. But in our unique situation, we actually use these liquidity pools to generate revenue. So the larger we make these LP pools, for one, we get to generate more revenue off of the arbitrage bot. So in the example earlier, I was talking about how the arbitrage bot was going to have to move $10,000 to fix the pools at the current size. Well, what happens if PulseChain revalues by 10x? Well, now that same arbitrage bot would have to move $100,000 to fix the same pools. So instead of generating $500 off of that transaction each time, which totaled to 1,000, we would generate $5,000, which would equal $10,000 off of that arbitrage move because our liquidity revalued. An interesting thing that we don't know what's going to happen yet, but I think is going to happen, is I think pTGC's liquidity will continue to increase in size over the overall chain. And then I think that the liquidity of the core tickers are not going to increase as rapidly, which will then make the pTGC and UFO system have more share of the overall liquidity on chain, making it so market makers need to route through our systems more because we technically are offering a service to the whole entire chain by holding up the liquidity of the whole entire chain. How liquidity works is, let's use Hex for an example. If Hex starts moving up against Pulse, it will spread the price of Hex from the liquidity, right? This is what happens naturally with pTGC and UFO as well. In the last 2 years, PulseChain has not moved up with us. So pTGC has actually been running away from its liquidity. But when you get X's from your bonded asset, not from you, your liquidity moves up evenly. So for this Hex example or PulseChain example, I think Hex is a better example. If Hex starts moving up against PulseChain when all of this revalues, we think Hex could really outperform PulseChain because it's also working off an X multiplier. It's going to start spreading itself from its liquidity. But since we are also bonded to Hex in that specific pair, those LPs will actually move up evenly, making it to where we don't spread. And then what our spread would be is what we move up against that, right? So I think since we're kind of one layer lower than a standard token that's only bonded with just the gas token, we have this unique web design going on here. There's the possibility that our web keeps increasing in value, our liquidity, more than other assets on chain, helping us become a larger liquidity percentage to the entire chain, which then in turn makes arbitrage bots route through our system more and more and more to get users the best price, which then equals more value generation for the user.
I think the best example of that.
Sorry, real quick, Nick. That doesn't even include the fact that Richard has been known for, as price kind of goes up, pulling back some liquidity so it can keep going up even harder. this, because with our system, we don't plan on really doing stuff like that. Go ahead.
I was going to say a good example of the liquidity web potentially supercharging pTGC would be the run that we saw from PDI, Wrap Bitcoin, and the Atropa ecosystem. And pTGC had early liquidity pools with those that started off pretty small, but grew rapidly with the price appreciation of pTGC and those Atropa assets. And that really fueled a lot of volume and a lot of fees and a lot of burns by having those assets in your liquidity web. And of course, we all know that there was the whole debacle and who knows where everybody stands, but that's what can happen when things in the liquidity web really start to move and get their own community and get their own utility and have really fast price appreciation and volume generation, as pTGC gets a piece of that pie from liquidity bonding, but also from taxes that are being generated between volume between the pairs. So, that is the example that we already saw. And when that happened, pTGC went into the top 200 in the entire crypto space on CoinGecko. And, this is with PulseChain near these same levels. And really, it was just thriving off the fees, the burns, the LP ads, and the explosion from the Atropa, PDI, and Wrap Bitcoin ecosystem. And because pTGC was early to see the opportunity there and creating that liquidity bonding, it got to benefit in a big way. And the same thing applies. Still there is, although they're smaller, there is still those pools, and those are doing well off the lows. And it looks like the Grace currency is constantly looking for other small gems on chain that might have the same effect leading into the next part of the cycle.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool how these liquidity pools work. I call it the alpha pool, but what it is just natural selection happening with the liquidity web. So the assets that we're paired to that do the best naturally will start to become some of our biggest liquidity pools, and the pairs that we have that are doing the worst will naturally become the smallest. And that's kind of what we want, right? We want the tokens that we're bonded to that are underperforming to have the least impact over our system, and we want the pools that are our best tokens that we've bonded to, because we don't know what those are today, but in the future those will become the larger liquidity pools, and those larger liquidity pools will have more weight over our system, right? And that's kind of what you want to happen naturally, is the tokens that you're bonded to that are performing best to have the most impact over your token as well. So it's cool how these systems actually do that automatically. You don't need to actually readjust them with what's performing well and what's performing bad. They kind of do it on their own.
And Zen, I'm just going to add there, Zen and Nick, that those liquidity pools, because they're burnt, they're always there. So the great thing about it is, I'll give you an example. If PDI, decides to completely drop away and have another rug, it's not going to affect pTGC because of the fact that size liquidity pool, think of it as, say, a bubble, is become so small, and all the other burnt liquidity pools are actually so large that it just doesn't really affect, the chart at all. But to the other side, if, say, PDI decides to peg to $1, that pool becomes very, very large, and then therefore actually affects the price chart of pTGC in the positive to the up and right, and we actually end up getting pushed up off the coattails. So it's a win-win either way.
Exactly right. That's how I look at it, is if the narrative is true, we will win massively off the success of P copies being a huge narrative on the chain. They will become some of our largest liquidity pools. They'll have the most, one of the most impacts over our system, which we want, because that means they were successful. They have large communities, price, etc. But if the P copy narrative, let's say, dies off, naturally those liquidity pools would shrink, and then the other assets in our index would grow, making those systems have very little impact over our protocol long term, right? There is some growing pains that happen in the middle of that, but as we can see, we can absorb those growing pains no problem. We've literally been involved with PDI doing a 99% dip, and of course we dipped along with that, but you could see that if that just never came back, we would have moved on without it. But to our surprise, or not even surprise, just to our benefit, PDI did come back, which is awesome for our system, right? We want the success. We can look at our liquidity web and you could say, I want the success of any of these assets, because the success of any of these assets make pTGC that much more successful. It increases the value of pTGC. It increases the liquidity of pTGC. It increases the volume of pTGC, which then increases the value generation of pTGC. And right now within our liquidity web, we have, in my opinion, I call them the three main categories on chain right now. It's the RH core tokens, it's the pump tire tokens, and it's the P copies, right? And there's a few different groups on chain that have their different opinion. Some think that the real values is in RH cores and they don't move too much into the other sectors. Some think that the pump tire tokens are where the real value is because they're so light and easy to pump and less people holding them, etc. And they think that's going to be a big mover this cycle. And then some people think there's a big thing going on with the P copies, right? How we're set up is if any of these three categories win, we win, right? If all three of the categories win, we win that much more. And then we also have the own success of our individual protocol that we rely on as well, which obviously I think that's been the category that's done the most for us to date. I think definitely P copies have done decent, but today we had some value generation from tire tokens, the pump tire tokens, but currently that's kind of died off a little bit, but we got to utilize them while they were moving to generate revenue. Obviously, we all know where the cores are at. Those haven't been helping us that much besides the value generation, but price appreciation, not at all. We have gotten some stuff out of the P copies, which is obvious. But when any of these decide to wake up, those will naturally become our alpha pools. If all three decide to wake up, well, then everything's successful and we win that much harder. And that's obviously what I want. I want them all to be successful. In a perfect world, they're all successful at different days, right? Like most is moving up one day, PDI is moving up the next, RH cores move up the next day. They're kind of are all fluctuating around each other. This would be the maximum value generation part of our system if that occurs. Obviously, that might not occur that way. They might just all move up evenly together, which would equal a little bit less value generation. But if we get those like volatile shifts between these three sectors, which in the past has happened because humans are emotional and they kind of just flop to all these different sectors and they can't make up their mind. And this even happens within the sectors too. You can see this rotation happening between RH tokens all the time. We generate revenue off of that indecisiveness. And then we bring that value back to a unique individual product. So it is interesting how pTGC also is generating revenue off of human emotions as well, not from our own community, but just the natural human emotions that just flow from FOMO and fear in the market as well.
JV Minor asks another questions. How do you think pTGC will react after the bull market top? Do you think it'll drop 99% like other coins do, or are there reasons to believe that pTGC will act differently?
I think there will be a good drop, right? I think there will be a good drop, especially if there's a massive drop to our index, right? If there's a massive drop to the things we're bonded to, we will definitely be trying to swim up a current, right? Or swimming against the current. So you have to keep that in mind, right? Even if we're doing buy and burns constantly and stuff like that, if everything we're connected to is going down and value is leaving crypto, of course, we're going to get dragged down by our connected assets. And then I do believe also a portion of value will be taken out of pTGC. If pTGC and UFO are as successful as we believe they will be, this will be a place where people take profits from. The thing that we have in our advantage is throughout the whole entire bull market, we're going to be generating revenue. We're going to be buying people out of their positions. We're going to be storing value in stables. We're going to be LPing with stables to help bond ourselves to stables near the top. Also storing stables, to help buy back the bottom. The best example I can kind of look at is on PulseChain, you can kind of see what happened from December to now. Some of our assets took like 95% dips, like PDI for an example. RH's cores went to new all-time lows, but our system still made a higher low, right? So even though some of the things that we were bonded to went to lower lows, our system actually created a floor that was like 10x higher than the higher low previously on the micro cycle. So personally, I think that's somewhat what is going to happen. The amount of retracement that comes, I think, will be dependent on the retracement of what we are bonded to. Obviously, our own community's emotions. I personally think we got one of the strongest communities out there. I think we have a lot of incentives to hold multi-cycle, more than 99.9% of cryptos that exist, and I think that will start to show some strength. I think the community members who are large in the system that are left have a ton of incentives to stay. When you run the numbers of PulseChain being successful, pTGC being successful, and what this APY could equal for the bigger players, it becomes large enough to where I even see like they don't even need to touch their initials. They can actually live a very decent life off of their APY, which helps hold up the price as well if you have big players willing to support the protocol, and then they just get paid out in APY to live a decent life. This helps hold those values, but it is unknown. But I do believe there will be a bear market, and I think that bear market is going to be very, very necessary for the pTGC and UFO system, because next cycle, I think the token will be so well distributed with a natural bull run of PulseChain. Like if new users start actually flowing into PulseChain instead of it being the same users that were here in PulseChain 4 years ago, let's say there's an inflow of 5 times the amount of users. Well, this is 5 times the amount of holders that now pTGC can educate on this unique system, this unique store of value, right? I do think a large portion of those people will put a portion of their portfolio in the index of PulseChain, right? They will see value in storing it here, which will then create a more distributed supply. Then there will obviously be a dip. Well, now there's 5 times the amount of people. If the system proves to be what it is, I think those people will accumulate during that dip, and it will actually get ready for the next bull cycle, which will make the protocol more sustainable as it goes multiple cycles out. But yeah, there will be dips. You know, I don't think there's any way to really hedge against it. When value starts to leave crypto, you are literally in a situation where you can try to swim against that current, but sometimes the best thing you can do is save your energy, let the current kind of take you where it goes, and then when that current slows down, you have the energy and you have the power to kind of swim up and get going for the next run. And luckily with our system, throughout the whole bear, we're generating revenue, we're doing buy and burns, we're doing LP ads, and we're getting ready for the next go, which 99.9% of protocols don't have that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, to kind of sum that up, I think that the dip, pTGC will overperform to the downside versus competitors due to all the reasons you laid out. We can look at history, you know, on the big dip off this blow off top, pTGC went down 87% versus like PDI and them went down 95%, so it overperformed there. You also have to factor in the passive income you earn on the way up and the way down, because there's a lot of volatility, a lot of volume, and if you hold through that, you will be earning a lot of pTGC from that deflationary staking rewards, holding rewards, or locked rewards. And then also, even since that low that was put in, you know, while PLS was going to new lows, you guys put in the higher low. And since that low that was put in a few months ago, another 1% of the total supply has already been burnt. So it's hard to factor in just how scarce the asset will be over the course of this cycle leading into the top in the next cycle. Because I believe, you know, we have at least another 6 months in this cycle, but I'm the one that has the proponent of this cycle extending into 2026, and we'll see what happens. I see B-Roots in here. He hates the term super cycle, but there is potential if we make it beyond, you know, Q1 2026 that the bull market could continue, and it kind of breaks all logic that we've seen in crypto historically. And I think pTGC, due to the token economics, due to the burns, and due to the hold rewards, really will outperform many on the downside. Yes, there's going to be volatilities, ups and downs, profit taking, liquidity bonding to the downside, but we've already seen with a larger total supply and no real good price performance from any other assets. PDI and them went down 95 to 99%, and pTGC only went down 87%. And I think that trend continues, and that gap narrows even more so.
Yeah, and you also have to kind of think about if people are taking profits in a bull market. With most systems, the people taking profits aren't actually making the system more sustainable for the users in the future, or the users who decide to hold multi-cycle or a portion of their portfolio multi-cycle. Like you don't have to go all or nothing. You could say, hey, I'll take profits at 25%. I'm going to let 75% ride in a ladder, or so on and so forth. But the people who do take profits have to make the system even stronger for the next generation of pTGC holders, because 5% of their sell goes to the buy and burn, goes to the DAO, goes to LP ads, and goes to APY for holders. What this turns out to be over long term, I think we're still in that discovery phase, right? And that's why we've seen pTGC making higher lows constantly, even with the blockchain we're built on, making lower lows. And I think this trend will continue. I actually think PulseChain isn't going to go lower lows after this bull market. I think it will land higher. The question you kind of have to ask yourself, where is that higher? Is that 10x here? Is that 20x here? Is that 50x here? I think that's somewhat dependent on how high it actually goes. But I do think a higher low will come about, which then you kind of have to think, wow, if PulseChain starts to hit higher lows, and we've been hitting higher lows with PulseChain hitting lower lows, how much higher is our next higher low after a real cycle? This could equal the situation where this low of PulseChain is creating the last cheap price of pTGC ever, right? Because every single time previously PulseChain has been at these levels, pTGC has never came back to the levels it was when PLS was at those levels previously. And I think that will especially take place if PLS doesn't come back to these levels ever again either. And I think if PLS goes on an actual run, and we have an actual bull run here on PulseChain, I think it will land higher, which then makes pTGC land higher just naturally because of bonded liquidity.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chart's looking great at the moment. It's got a nice double bottom. It's hitting that resistance, and it's starting to push out. So I think we're not ever see these levels again, and that double bottom. I'm pretty sure that some fireworks are going to happen pretty soon in the next couple of weeks, especially on this chart, and we're going to push up and start testing all-time highs. So
yeah, we're near that resistance of a 4-month consolidation, and on PulseChain, a 4-month consolidation is pretty huge, especially on an asset that's been buying and burning itself and adding new LP with other tokens and core coins. So I think that's what I was going to say is people forget how quickly things can move, just like they forgot how quickly things can change and the bears can switch on Ethereum. We went from everybody hating it, calling it dead, soy boy, to it doing a triple off the low and really just getting started. pTGC, just due to the token economics, you're 3x away from all-time high right now. And I heard people talking like, oh, well, if PulseChain can get a 3x, then pTGC goes to a new all-time high. If PulseChain does a 3x, his history is going to tell you that pTGC is doing like a 6x, a 9x, a 12x,
50,
and going to be way beyond all-time highs. And it's really going to kind of mind fuck you on how quickly assets like this can move when it actually gets the support from the other assets on chain, especially the largest liquidity pools, which are the blue chips and all the RH tickers. So don't sleep on it, guys. And when you have consolidation like this, it is just pressure building up. People were selling out their bags, and now you have a lot less sell pressure as we move up into higher levels.
Yeah, totally. And there's been instances as well where pTGC just starts pushing up even before PulseChain wakes up. That can and it happens so quickly. So we all know we just wait for months and months, and if you look at the charts now and you do a little bit of TA, it's ready to go. It's just itching to break out.
Follow-up question from JV Miner. What indicators are you looking for to know when to start bonding with stables? Like what indicators are we looking for? Is it a certain pTGC price? If so, what price? sorry for all the questions. And I just told him, keep bringing the questions. They're good.
Yeah, if he was saying sorry for bringing the questions, don't be sorry. I really appreciate him asking the questions. This is what these spaces are for the community to bring the questions. Really, it's not like a massive indicator what I'm personally looking for, because for our system in general, we'll probably start grabbing some of the stables pretty early, just with not large amount, right? And the DCAing into stables via our value generation. It's just right down here at the lows of PulseChain. It makes no sense. So maybe it's around where PulseChain passes all-time highs. I think if PulseChain doesn't pass all-time highs this cycle, that would pretty much be not a good situation, right? That pretty much would just mean that even our highs are lower and stuff like that. So passing all-time highs is a good indicator just to slowly start DCAing into stables with some of our value generation. You know, maybe it's a quarter of what we're taking in from the Dow and just kind of storing that up for next bear market. We also can close some of the more risky LP pools that we have down that we think maybe aren't multi-cycle and move those over to stables, helping bond us closer to a top, more for value generation to constantly bounce off of those stables as well. But I don't have like a particular, like, hey, this is the number where we're loading up on stables. I think we have to kind of feel out the momentum of the chain and take in more information, right? If some really solid information starts to come out that there is some real things behind the scenes for PulseChain, I think price can go so much higher to where if there isn't really any behind the scenes tricks by Richard and we're just moving up naturally from just being a blockchain and money flowing into crypto, like we can get plenty of X's just from the natural market cycle with no tricks up the sleeve. But if there's some tricks up the sleeve, some innovation, I think we have a lot more room to run. So we have to kind of take all that data in weekly, monthly, watch what's happening on chain. Every single week, it seems like some new information is coming out, and then we can just constantly adjust with that information. That's what's beautiful about the DAO, is it gives us a way in a decentralized and automated manner to constantly pivot with the information and the cycles and the evolving crypto industry as time goes on.
Geez, I didn't realize. I just had a look at the charts now. Against PulseChain, we're actually only a 48% away from hitting all-time highs on that ratio.
Yep. That's true.
Yeah, we're making our way up. We're making our way up.
Yeah.
And you have to keep in mind
the USD chart all the time, and I forget to look at the PLS chart.
And you have to keep in mind how easy it is for us to get that next bit with PulseChain moving back up. Like a lot of people don't realize that when PLS actually starts moving back up, it actually makes it easier for us to outperform PulseChain. Because if PLS is moving up, that literally means value is flowing into PulseChain. And if you study any other blockchain out there, when value starts flowing into the blockchain, a very small percentage of that money actually just stays in the blockchain only. A very large percentage of that money usually speculates on the sustainable long-term or popping or, attention-grabbing alt tokens on the chain, right? We fall under this category. So does our liquidity web. So even if we're not the one getting the majority of the attention, let's say it's most tokens for some reason, or PDI for some reason, or Hex for some reason, even with that value that flows on chain, making its way to any of those assets, that helps our system keep outperforming PulseChain in general, right? If, let's say, every bit of value, this is kind of the unique situation, right? What if not any real value flows into PulseChain from natural human interaction? And let's say it's some insiders that are only doing it to pump the price, and they're not going into the sub assets that aren't RH tokens. Let's say they're RH maxis. Well, even with that value, let's say it's Richard himself, going into Hex, that pumps pTGC against Pulse because we're bonded with Hex, right? Let's say that value goes to PulseX. Well, that pumps pTGC against Hex. So due to the structure of pTGC, with just value flowing on chain, naturally we'll start to outperform PulseChain just due to the specific design of the system. They don't even need to buy pTGC. And then we'll buy ourselves just from our value generation as well.
Hey Mando, how's that Liberty Swap Finance situation going? I'm seeing you're doing quite a lot of work in the background for pTGC there.
Truthfully, I'm not doing a lot of work at all. I've just been in contact with them a little bit. They're absolutely listing both tokens, but because there's a fee on transaction with the smart contracts, they actually have to build contracts specifically for the protocol. Otherwise, they've already been listed by now.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but they are working on it. Zen's also been in contact with them. There's also potential.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to give it an effort to try to get us listed, but not a guarantee. It'll be awesome if we get listed on there.
Yeah, there's also potential for, once that's done, to actually have a UI potential. This is potential, a UI right on the site that would allow for swapping direct from the site, if that happens.
Yeah, so as of right now, how the site's looking is they will be included on the onboarding page as just an additional option for users. So we're going to have the standard bridge. Obviously, this kind of works for bigger purchases and bigger money flowing over to PulseChain. We're also going to have PulseX, and then we're also going to be Liberty Finance there as well. It looks like they created their on-ramp or their form of an on-ramp that's working with another system to where you can actually just Venmo money into, I believe it's ETH or Base, and then you could actually use their cross-chain swap to get over to PulseChain. So that possibly might be the easiest way to come over to PulseChain as of right now. I don't know if it works in the United States and stuff. I've never used it, but we will be having those on our onboarding section on the pTGC UI when that goes live. I'm really hoping before it goes live, the pTGC and UFO tokens do get listed on there, because that would make it a really easy way for me to create a section specifically for Liberty Finance, as for a user to be on one site and literally go from fiat to pTGC with one iframe pretty much.
Yeah. The unique thing about it is what it's doing is it's allowing for somebody, let's say you're on ETH, and let's say you want pTGC, right? Right now you'd have to go from ETH, send it through the bridge, and then once it hits the bridge, hit your wallet from the bridge, then you swap it. Well, what this just allows you to do is if you're on the ETH, you literally could just purchase your PRC20, which whatever's listed on Liberty, and it just lands into your wallet on PulseChain.
Yeah, it's a lot easier for investors that haven't gotten into PulseChain yet or whatever. But I did hear there's a $10,000 maximum swap fee. Oh, sorry, not fee. Max.
Yeah, the limit is 10,000, but that limit is based on the amount of capital that they have in the smart contracts. Because for each token, they have a certain amount of capital in each smart contract, and that's obviously based on demand. So you wouldn't overly capitalize a smart contract if there's no reason to do it. So they have set limits based on the amount of demand they're seeing coming in from other chains.
Yeah, gotcha. But either way, it's bullish anyway, because of the fact that just the easier way for outsiders to get into the asset straight away. You don't have any PLS, or they're not stuffing around with time and then multiple steps bridging and the rest of it. So yeah, it's good.
I feel like even with that small amount, right, at least that gets their foot in the door. And then after their foot's in the door, they tend to kind of teach themselves the basics of crypto. But if you don't give them a an easy opportunity to just get a little taste of what crypto is, some people just turn around and walk away due to the difficulty. So I think even with the small amounts, it at least gets them involved to then maybe they do put that extra effort in to actually learn how to bring over larger amounts across the bridge or how DeFi really should be.
Yeah, to be honest, it's something that PulseChain should have had a long time ago, you know. But the thing the thing I like about it is that it's just the speed of the transaction instead of sitting there waiting for 96 confirmations on the bridge, you know?
Yeah, if you've ever onboarded anyone who's a no coiner over to PulseChain, when you're going through that side of it, they're kind of looking at you like you're crazy. Like, where did my money just go? And you're kind of just twiddling your thumbs for 30 minutes with them.
Yeah, done that a few times.
Yeah, I do think either way, what pTGC, like obviously what pTGC is today isn't what we believe it will be in the future. Right now, people speculate on it for many reasons. The X is, you know, the APY, the liquidity, like they believe with PulseChain success, we'll do plenty of X's within this protocol due to the X multiplier. It's kind of like what Bitcoin was in the first 2 years isn't what Bitcoin is today, right? People were more speculating on it as far as it being a decentralized peer-to-peer cash. It was able to do tons of X's in that short amount of time. But what Bitcoin is today is a true store of value, right? It's people with very large amounts of capital storing their value in it for the price appreciation that is there, even though it's not 10x, 20x, but there is price appreciation and its security, the fact that it's decentralized, the liquidity there is to back it. What the goal is for pTGC is to become technically another version of this. Hopefully better, more sustainable, more price appreciation due to the mechanics behind it. If this goal is actually reached, right? Like if we have a successful blockchain and the blockchain helps pTGC be successful and we sustain higher levels, I personally think pTGC and UFO both become a product that people specifically have to come to PulseChain to actually be exposed to, right? I don't believe it could be replicated on other chains after this revaluation happens. And what that does for PulseChain is it gives us this unique product that I believe might stand out to even be a stronger store of value. You might have more price appreciation, more value, or you're getting paid value for just holding the asset. So when you store value in Bitcoin, you're not getting paid in Bitcoin, right? You actually have to worry about the little amount of inflation going on by miners, etc. So you can actually just hold this asset, get paid this asset. It's a decreasing supply, so it's becoming more scarce and more valuable every day behind you. It's also buying and burning itself, so it has features that actually keep pushing it up with you. So if this comes about, obviously this is no guarantee. This is risky. There's a chance of PulseChain not even being successful at all, or the holders of pTGC selling. Like these are all realistic things. But if everything keeps acting as it has been for 2 years, that's the nice thing of having 2 years of data. I personally think that a lot of people will be bridging to PulseChain just to get the pTGC and UFO asset. And since the pTGC and UFO asset is bonded with Pulse and all these other assets, when they come to get pTGC, it's going to actually be increasing the price of PulseChain, of Hex, of PulseX, of most, right? So I don't think a lot of people on PulseChain have put that together yet, but by PulseChain being successful, which then in turn makes pTGC and UFO being successful, and if pTGC actually turns into what it's been designed to be, a premier store of value, and large amounts of capital actually come over the chain to get pTGC, they have to get PulseChain first, which then increases the value of every asset that you care about. Again, I think this would maybe be a good reason why Liberty Swap, even if it's not something right now that they solve, with a successful PulseChain, I do think it's something that gets resolved in the future just due to that product market fit. I think a lot of people will be bridging large amounts of value over here to be exposed to pTGC and UFO as a unique product.
There's a question of this. Go ahead.
And I think it's right now not looked at as a real symbiotic relationship, but in the future, I think it will really start to show that PulseChain's helping pTGC become the thing that it's designed to be. Obviously, there's risk now, and with risk becomes massive reward because of that X multiplier effect. But in the future, right, I think people will see a lot of value coming to PulseChain to actually be exposed to pTGC and UFO, which then is pTGC and UFO also helping PulseChain be more sustainable and giving it more product market fit as having unique products built on top of it.
There's a question about the DAO. When people vote to buy and burn pTGC or to add LP with a pair, is that an automatic process, or are you manually doing the purchase or adding LP?
You are manually doing the purchase. The automated feature is the PLS is getting sent to you automatically by the smart contract via your claim. So it's not dependent on a certain individual going into a wallet that's controlled by one entity and then giving you the funds to carry it out. It's a smart contract, not a technical wallet. So by you creating the proposal, you are then kind of making the claim on your 100 million pulse or whatever you asked for out of that smart contract. And then it's up to you to carry out that that proposal. And then that's all verifiable on blockchain that if you carried it out or not. If you didn't carry it out, I believe none of the people would let you have a proposal again. Most likely, we've actually haven't had one event where a proposal hasn't been carried out on behalf of the PulseChain or pTGC and UFO community properly. Because they're incentivized to do so, right? If you are in the top 100, you have probably, I don't know what it is now, but let's say $100,000 or more in pTGC. So it actually makes financial sense for you to carry out the proposal on behalf of the pTGC ecosystem.
Thank you for that answer.
Yeah, you end up making a dumb move by doing something malicious. Your wallet is immediately flagged. And because there's a 5% fee on a transaction, you can't move to another wallet to unflag yourself without losing a lion's share of your tokens. So,
well, and we just track it to another address too.
Well, right, but I mean, someone would be dumb. Who wants to lose 5% to try to steal 100 million pulse? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and that's what's important for decentralization, right? Is in a certain way, you want to trust the people who hold the asset to make the best decisions for the asset long term over one specific person making all the decisions for the rest of eternity. If that one specific person doesn't do what's on behalf of the community, or let's say they die and the wallet gets passed on to someone else, or they just get tired of crypto or let's say wealthy and don't care anymore, then there's no one to take it over and funds just keep endlessly flowing into their wallet for them to do whatever. This, in my opinion, doesn't create a system that lasts as long or becomes as large, right? That decentralized feature, I think, can really turn something into what we're aiming to be, like the next premier store of value on chain. Like, of course, it could be a successful token, but I think obviously it's pretty clear that we're aiming for a lot more than just being a successful token.
Yeah. I can tell you, I've been browsing the charts and just looking at some other assets on PulseChain. And I can tell you that, just looking at recent evidence, like the last few months, PTDC is doing so well, not just in terms of USD, but in terms of WPLS, moving up against the L1, compared to many other assets on the chain. I'm very impressed. There's nothing like going in and seeing all of them back to back in just a few minutes. It makes an impression.
Yeah, you kind of have to ask yourself, is with PTGC and UFO, PTGC has almost 2 years of a track record that you can actually look at to see how it reacts to money actually flowing into the chain. There's been currently 2 big moves of value flowing into the chain, and a very large amount of that value flowed into PTGC and UFO, right? When you look at other assets, you can actually look at them and say, okay, when value starts flowing in, previously, did a large portion of that value make its way to this specific asset in the past, or was it overlooked? Most likely, if it was overlooked in its first microcycle or its first inflow of value, and it wasn't capitalized on, it most likely is not going to get capitalized on again. And that's not to be rude. It's just, you know what I mean? It's like you have these certain points that you need to prove yourself that you have product market fit. And the more times that people walk by your store and don't walk in, when the inflow of value comes, most likely it's not going to happen unless you've drastically changed your product or something like that. So I think that's a good thing for users to pay attention to when, there is no value on chain. Currently, our city is closed. There isn't like a highway flowing right by our strip mall. And previously, there was a highway flowing right by the strip mall, a very small one. And you can actually look at what stores got used. It's as simple as that. They're building the highway right now. When these cars start driving by, don't be surprised if the store that wasn't used last time the highway was going by is not used again. It's the best time when it's in this slow down period to actually rotate to the products that have shown to have product market fit when the users start to be driving by these strip malls. Luckily with PTGC, the nice thing is we technically own the whole entire strip mall. So even if they're not buying PTGC, they're buying Moe's, PDI, Atropa, Hex, PulseX, Pump, Trump. It don't matter. We're raking in shares of the revenue that those are taking in, and it's appreciating our price. And then also we get the value generation as well for buy and burns LP ads and APY in our system.
You seeing on the chart where we're at right now, guys? Against USD on the USD chart?
Yeah, we talked a lot about that early in the spaces, I think, before you hopped on. And, we're talking about the 4-month consolidation right up against that range and, talked about upside potential and whether or not PulseChain also has a bullish cup and handle and what that could mean for PTGC if PulseChain does indeed have a 30 to 60% breakout here. So things look really good for PTGC, even if the underlying network is slow. From a TA perspective, from a fundamental perspective, just the sheer amount of tokens that have been burnt in this 4-month consolidation is massive as well.
Yeah, I like the 30% higher low from that big drawdown too. We're right there about to bust over that resistance level. After that, it's who knows where we go.
Someone on YouTube was asking if PTDC could ever go 1-to-1 with Hex. Well, it did. It has done a 620x against Hex, and it's 14x from going 1-to-1 right now. So yeah, it's possible. Yes.
Matter of fact, D Roots, I think, had a tweet, I think, a day ago about it.
I guess the other question would be 1-to-1 with Hex as in P-Hex plus E-Hex or just P-Hex?
No, P-Hex.
P-Hex.
They're different tokens. I hate that whole bring them together narrative.
Yeah, the only reason, depending on the conversation, that like when people are talking about all-time highs and different things, that I factor in both P-Hex and E-Hex is because I kind of look at it as a stock split. Like people got their share value 1-to-1 when P-Hex became a thing, kind of like when eBay and PayPal broke up. So if you're looking at actual performances or all-time highs, to me, you almost got to still count both shares, because that's what, at that given snapshot, that's the value that shareholder had, or that token holder had when the airdrop was created. I am always been a proponent that PHEX is going to be where the value lives and where the value flows, and it's going to be the best performer, even when it first happened, even though I'm not a HEX guy. But when people talk about all-time highs and stuff, or they show just one chart, I kind of remind them that most people, when they're looking at that price performance, should probably look at both shares that were received, because there was that one-to-one airdrop and snapshot.
Who wants to come up?
Over? Sorry, I was going to say, did you want to go over just the overall market sentiment and, just where Bitcoin dominance is sort of starting to drop, and alt season starting already, or first stages of alt season starting to creep in?
Yeah, I think we touched briefly on that at the beginning of the stream as well, just kind of talking about how the Ethereum strategic reserve narrative is really taking force in a big way. ETF inflows for Ethereum are underway, and now you have BlackRock trying to get yield generation for the ETF based on them being able to stake the ETF for the spot, their ETH for the spot ETF. All these things lead me to believe that, we are in ETH season, and of course, historically, when ETH is doing well and outperforming Bitcoin, that brings risk on into the market. That also brings speculation in the market, and then also due to LP bonding, it helps out a lot of altcoins as Ethereum rises. And I think PulseChain is a layer one that has ties and liquidity pools, that has a founder that has a massive ETH bag, that has the PulseChain sacrifice wallet that people can speculate on, has a lot of reasons to do very well when ETH does well. And, alt season this isn't euphoria, guys. I think you're still very early, and it's not all alts right now. You can't just throw a dart and win no matter what. But you are seeing some nice growth out of some of the large caps and mid caps, and you are starting to see some headwinds turn into tailwinds as Ethereum really starts to take the narrative by storm. And I think this Ethereum strategic reserve narrative is going to be the market mover for the foreseeable future, and definitely for summertime, because like I said, Sharplink Gaming and Thomas Lee's narrative, they both need to buy another 600,000 to 700,000 ETH a piece. And that's not even including if anybody else gets involved or any of the Ethereum ETF inflows that happen. And remember, if BlackRock gets it passed that they can pay essentially a dividend yield on the Ethereum spot ETF, that will be one of the biggest things they push, because they're making not only fees on their AUM, but they will hold back some of the passive income DeFi yield generated by Ethereum as well. Say Ethereum produces 3 to 5% yield if you stake it by yourself. BlackRock will offer that to their clients, and they will, skim 1% of that off the top for themselves. And that is what they want to push. That is a high revenue producing asset class that is in popular demand from institutions. And, when that happens on speculative assets and scarce assets like Ethereum, and when Ethereum starts picking up and becoming deflationary, well, the sky's the limit on that price. And I think PulseChain and a lot of alts will catch that tailwind in a big way this cycle.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, and that's like sort of the fundamentals of the news side of it, and sort of that bullish news. But then also looking at the charts, the ones that the alts that have started breaking out or looking to break out very soon, but actually a very similar setup on the chart. So I was looking at SHIB, and I was on a Spaces call before this, looking at a few other charts, and yeah, the really strong ones, the strong tokens. I'm not just talking PulseChain, I'm talking other chains as well. Have that double bottom, that very similar setup. Double bottom, it looks like a strong W. It's about to break out, that they're at resistance, and it's exactly what pTGC is setting up to do at the moment, which is really positive.
Yeah, no, it's interesting is you're kind of seeing that on some of the OG memes and some of the OG utility plays. And I see you're referring to Doge, Shiba Inu. If you look at Floki, just kind of the little cousin to both of those. It's had the same chart, the same breakout pattern. So it's really good to see those things in action. And a lot of that is tied to the Ethereum liquidity and then also the BNB liquidity. It doesn't get talked about a lot, but look at that BNB chart. That thing's going to teleport to 1,000 a token with you not even seeing it on your news feed. So pretty interesting times that we're in. And I'm excited that these network tokens are doing so well, because I think that will feed down and funnel down into the PulseChain opportunity, open the eyes up of some of these no PulseChainers and get them over that bridge.
Yeah, I saw that, Nick. Yeah, BNB also. You're right. It's gearing up. It looks like it's going to really start running. Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to see. And I think, with pTGC as well, you've got, it's great. You can be banked into the category of a meme token. Then we get thrown into, of course, the utility, with the tokenomics and the mechanics behind it. So it's kind of like, which way do you want to start marketing and pushing coming into alt season for this sub ecosystem?
Yeah, I think definitely the fact that pTGC and UFO have gotten to a certain size is really nice for alt season. I definitely think there's always a market for like the degen, like micro cap plays, and that kind of goes throughout bull market, bear market. There's kind of always that moving around and people speculating on those to increase their ETH and their pulse, and etc. But when we get like a real altcoin season, you do see a large portion of the value move over to the like trusted, sustainable, long-term alt tokens on the blockchains, like the bigger ones, because the people who are flowing in, the more retail type, they're not going straight to like the micro caps, because that's just not what's on their news feed, and that's not what they're hearing about. Where they're landing is the larger alt tokens on the blockchain, like the Pepes, the Shibs, etc. And I think we've definitely gotten ourselves to a high enough level to where, in a large enough system where there's 2 years of track record, people can see the growth on the chart, they can see the liquidity, and possibly we could take in a lot of that capital, especially as it flows into PulseChain as well, as far as an asset that you can get multiple X's on top of the blockchain. So it's got the ability to use that X multiplier or a leverage position on the blockchain, but not a full-blown gambling risk as well, right? And I feel like there's a good portion of people who are looking for that in-between, and where we are right now, we fall really good into that category.
Yeah, and that's actually a good topic to bring up as well, because, like it took me 5 years in crypto to really start getting into tokens that are under 1 mil market cap and sort of do a bit of degening like that or risk taking on these new type assets. But when you start getting into above 100 million market cap, then you start targeting a different set of audience, or I wouldn't say a different demographic, but it's a different sort of bracket of audience or investment audience that hasn't been potentially in the market for so long. Maybe they've got larger capital plays and they want to place in a more risk adverse asset. So yeah, it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, they're definitely willing to hold longer, right? I feel like these users are not like so deep into crypto as that compared to like a lot of the people probably in this space, because I think a lot of the people who are even in pTGC right now are really deep into crypto, because really in general no one even knows pTGC exists. But I do think with the success of PulseChain, which then with the success of pTGC, will have more of a retail kind of personnel, just someone who maybe is in DeFi but not nose deep in Twitter and looking for the next big play, but they're looking for something that has already proven itself with a large community, with 2 years of data, that also has the ability to do tons of X's, liquidity, burnt liquidity, deflationary supply. Like, we're hitting a ton of these categories. And the nice thing about these users is they aren't rotating at a 2x, 3x, right? They're not using $1,000 to turn it into $3,000. These people usually have a larger form of value. Sometimes they're coming in with 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, and they're kind of parking it for a more long-term play, right? They're not traders or this or that. And I feel like pTGC is working itself up into that next category. And definitely, I think we still have the ability to change people's lives with even just $1,000, right? If you think about the fact that PulseChain hasn't moved at all, let's say you think PulseChain can do 100x, which is only a 30x of the sacrifice price. Pretty pretty reasonable, right? I'd say a lot of people think that's highly possible. That's 100x from here, right? pTGC, every time value has went into PulseChain, we've easily outperformed by a 10x. Like, really, it's more like 20 to 30x. But even if we just use the 10x number, that's 1,000x for pTGC holders, right? $1,000 turns into $1 million using the X multiplier. The fact that we're built on an undervalued blockchain gives us a huge advantage for even small investors. But the nice thing is we're actually starting to become a size to where we can actually showcase a lot of data, a lot of analytics to even the somewhat larger, safer investors as well.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about. And the fact that, let's say in about 3 months' time, you've got investors that are already in crypto or that are in the stock market, and they've made gains. They've made serious gains on whatever they've been in the last couple of years. With the S&P 500 just going up and to the right, over the last 10 years and everything else. But now that crypto is becoming a lot more accessible to be able to get into in terms of investment, then they're going to take their cream off the top, and they're going to want to, well, they're not going to just want to throw it away, but they're going to want to place it into something that's a bit more risky that they think would do more X's, but something that's not too risky where they're just going to lose their hard-earned profits from, their investment over the last five.
Yeah, this is like one of the reasons why we were trying to tackle a premier store of value, right? Store of value is pretty much the largest financial class. Like, the reason people are in stocks, the reason people buy gold, the reason people buy Bitcoin is in turn to store value. They're not buying gold because, for the most part, gold doesn't have the value it is today because of its utility, right? The utility is kind of not really there, right? People aren't buying stocks necessarily because they love drinking Coca-Cola. It's because they think it's a great store of value due to a company behind it, utility, etc. People don't buy Bitcoin because they want to transact with it every single day. They're storing their value there to hedge themselves against the inflation of whatever country they live in, fiat currency, right? If we can tap into this category with more price appreciation, built-in APY, and deflationary tokenomics, there's a very, very large amount of capital that can flow into PulseChain and pTGC for these specific assets. We just need a fraction of that for this thing to mathematically go parabolic, technically.
And I think that sector is
fraction. That's it, just a fraction. Sorry, Nick.
I was going to say that I think that sector in traditional markets is only getting bigger, and it's rolling over into crypto markets. Obviously, that's kind of, Bitcoin seen as the digital gold. And the reason being is I think people are becoming more financially literate, or, understanding what has happened to the spending power of the dollar. The dollar is the best performing fiat currency on the planet, yet from 1950 till today, that's only 75 years. Your parents might be that old. The spending power has gone from $1 in 1950 to 7 cents 75 years later. The best performing fiat there is. So in order to fight against that and to provide generational wealth or to provide a retirement for yourself, you need to get into asset protecting, value protecting investments. And I think that's the sector you guys have been going after. And this is why gold ETF is doing so well. This is why Bitcoin is catching on. This is why ETF investors are there for the long term. 90% of them are holding for multiple generations. That is because they need to protect their spending power that is eroding away, even in the strongest fiat currency in the world, which is USD. Again, 1950 till now, 75 years, the spending power was $1 in 1950, is worth 7 cents today. That is absolutely incredible. That is eye-opening, and I think people are finally becoming more financially literate and understanding that money in a savings account does nothing for you. You need to get it into these types of assets, and hopefully pTGC can get there. It's a long way away. Obviously, PulseChain's even got to get adoption first, but it's in a big sector that has big money and big opportunity.
Yeah, but you're right, Nick, because I've heard multiple different sources now over the last couple of months that potentially the next narrative for a serious run in crypto is actually going to be back to DeFi, utility, privacy as well. So with that in mind, this falls right into that. So it's just, and I think there was one point, Zen, where we were talking months and months back that, the spear being PulseChain is the spear. That's the layer one, and everything else. That's the gas token, and that will eventually start flying, which is what we all want. But there was a point in time where pTGC was actually getting the outreach and becoming a bit of a lure into the PulseChain ecosystem. So if that narrative plays out, if that is the strong narrative that starts running in, say, like a couple months' time, then we could be front and center with that as well, which would be awesome.
I think over time, pTGC can become one of the lures of PulseChain, right? I think PulseChain itself is its own lure. I think Richard's products are their own lures as well. But when you're fishing, if you want to catch a lot of fish, you see fishermen throw out 7 lures. Why? Because your probability of catching a fish goes way up if you have 7 fishing rods sitting out there. I just personally think pTGC is a unique lure that is only going to be on PulseChain, right? Due to its design, due to the success of PulseChain, it's a unique product that people are going to have to come to PulseChain to actually, be exposed to. And of course, if someone wants to become exposed to pTGC, they have to get PulseChain. So anyone who's getting pTGC is increasing the price of PulseChain in general, and increasing Hex because it's all bonded in liquidity, also increasing PulseX, also increasing Most, Pump, even the PDI ecosystem because they're all bonded together. But rewinding to what you guys were saying about, the storing value. Like, I complain about the inflation of fiat, and I live in the United States. It's technically the best fiat currency exists. Like, you have to realize in most other countries, it's even worse than here. And I'm complaining about it, right? So there is a real solution that we have with these digital assets that technically can hedge you against whatever your country's inflation is. What we're seeing in Bitcoin right now is the fact that it's not the product it was 10 years ago, right? What it's evolved into is an asset that actually countries, companies, governments can actually store very large amounts of their value in. And it's because they have multiple years, decades, technically, or a decade technically, of track record to base off of, right? Right now with PulseChain and pTGC, they're only 2 years old. So there's not enough data for this large amounts of value. And I don't mean $100,000, I mean millions of dollars to store their value in. But as time goes on, as they prove themselves, when there's charts that go back 5 years and they can actually see the system working for multi-cycles, people are going to, if PulseChain is successful, going to bring very, very large amounts of value, I believe, to store on this blockchain due to its decentralization, due to the fact that Richard has done very well about supply and demand principles, like the basics of what gives things value. And what that does to pTGC over the long term and what we can see on the chart is I personally believe people will find value in bringing over at least a portion of their value, if that's in stocks or Bitcoin or whatever, into this blockchain specifically to be exposed to pTGC and UFO once the machine actually turns on. Right now, it's not even really turned on because the main ingredients to make this machine thrive is new users actually flowing in a net positive over that bridge. You have to realize there's actually been a negative amount of users flowing out of, or there's been people flowing out of that bridge for the last 2 years. You can see that in the PLS chart. That's a direct indication of it. Once PLS starts going up, that's an indication that people are flowing in. Once we actually have new users to be exposed to this unique product, it makes the product thrive. It's a key ingredient of its success. And then also the success of the RH tokens, right? This is a huge part of our index. As all these things revalue, the system actually turns on. And just with, let's say PulseChain does a 30x price, that's 100x from these levels. If you 100x our liquidity to date, that puts our liquidity web at, I think, $1.5 billion.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, so we have 15 million, right?
Yeah, I think that's
$1.5 billion.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much larger than anything I can think of as far as on-chain liquidity, as far as a store of value, right? So this is one proposition of why people will bring value into our specific ecosystem, because there's this value generation machine that generates value off of liquidity, and there's $1.5 billion of liquidity. If you take our average daily volume from the last 6 months, it's 350,000. If you times that by 100, because our liquidity just went up by 100, which means market makers will need to move 100 times the amount of value, that makes the average daily volume 35 million, with the majority of that being done mechanically. You times that by 365 days, if that can be withstanded for a whole entire year, you're at $12 billion of volume yearly. And then our machine generates value off of that volume. So you times that by 0.05, that would be $638 million a year of value generation from our utility. And this system doesn't have any overhead. We don't have devs that are on payroll. We don't have a building that has to be paid for. That gets to go 100% back to the ecosystem via APY, buy-in burns, and LP ads. Let's say only half of that stays in the system.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, times 0.5. That's $319 million of value going back into pTGC yearly, with just PulseChain being roughly 30x stack price. And that's why I believe this is actually going to be a premier store of value, because I don't know of a product that exists even close to this.
And the great thing is about that is that the new investors that are coming into the PulseChain, this whole blockchain, and they do want to get the core tickers, but then then they do here, and we market, and we are the closest thing to an index. Then they probably will get the cores, but they would also like to get this index that has the leverage on the cores. So marketing it that way, because it is that way, is just
I think when you say that there's nothing that exists, and I think the big piece is that when you're talking about that much capital in liquidity pools, and you're talking about the fact that it is 100% burned and protocol owned, no VC company, no high-level group of individuals own it. No one could remove it. It is there forever, infinitum, generating revenue. That is
100% burn.
Massive eye catcher, man.
Yeah, it's not 100% burn. The majority of it's burn.
I just say it because 80, maybe 90% of it is 95, whatever it is.
Yeah, the majority of the main RH stickers are burnt. Some of the more speculative plays are liquid in case they don't last multi-cycle. We have the ability to rotate out of those, put that value into stables at tops, etc. But the majority of that liquidity is burnt, which is very, very powerful compared to most products that exist.
Yeah, I mean, even if you removed the value of the ones that aren't burnt and just talked about the ones that are, you're still in astronomical numbers, man.
Yeah, it far out exceeds anything else that exists by far.
And see, Mando and Zen, the one problem you've really got is the fact that you throw those numbers to anyone else outside of what we've been studying for the last 2 years, and they're going to look at you and laugh. They're going to be like, that could be right. That's not, that's a joke. It's
the power of what Richard gave us. Richard gave us a very unique opportunity to redefine how assets exist with humans. If this blockchain is successful, I do believe Richard's products and this product will take over pretty much digital assets. We are building full-blown DeFi protocols, true store of values at the bottom of the blockchain. This opportunity has never existed before in crypto. There is risk involved, right? That's what I tell everyone. The numbers that I simulate of what this system could be in the future are on the back of PulseChain being remotely successful. PulseChain technically could not be successful, and this whole system could go completely unnoticed. But this system was built on PulseChain because I specifically believe in Richard and his products as a whole. And when Richard's products start to get adoption, as our system helps get Richard's products adoption, it's a team effort here, a symbiotic relationship. It will start compounding on itself, I think, larger than anyone realizes. Very quickly, pTGC can be in the top 50 of assets in crypto with the amount of liquidity, $1 billion of liquidity on chain, and a value generation source over $500 million a year, with 100% of it going to APY for holders and buy and burns and LP adds to the system. it becomes a machine that becomes almost impossible to even compete against, in my opinion. We'll see. These are speculations and calculations, hypotheses of what the future could hold. But I'm super excited to see what it can do with the success of PulseChain.
Yeah, totally, man. And it's just really difficult for all of us to comprehend that at the moment, because we've all got recency bias. We all have not really experienced the euphoria since in crypto since 2020, 2021. I mean, we've had glimpses of it, but it hasn't gone to that level. So we've all got the recency bias of, things, can they really reach those figures? But then you've got this on top of it, which hasn't been seen before as an asset with liquidity burnt and can go up with the rising tide of PulseChain, with this unique opportunity that Zen, you've spoken about a million times, that it's at its lows, and you've just, this sub ecosystem just accumulated LP and pools with the key assets that we feel are the key assets, and it's just, once they all start going up, it's just going to be an absolute beast.
Yeah, it's just code, right? So like we have 2 years of data to track of how this code operates with its existing liquidity web, and we know how liquidity webs operate, and we know how value flows into chains. So going off of this data of 2 years, we can actually make pretty educated predictions of what will happen in the future. But obviously, there's no guarantee. Like crypto could get lack of adoption, PulseChain could get lack of adoption. We are in a risky asset class due to all these things. But with that risk comes so much reward. Me and Banana did a private Zoom call with the crypto community last night, and some of them were in PulseChain, and we were kind of running some of these numbers with them, and we'd ask them like, "Hey, what do you think PulseChain could do this cycle?" And he said, "Oh, I think it could do 100 to 1,000x, right?" And then I said, "Well, imagine this, right? This is the kind of value generation our system does at these X's. And then this is the kind of X multiplier we could be working off based off previous history. Obviously, none of this stuff is guarantees." And then he said, "I just don't understand, though. How do you know people are going to hold after they do 1,000x?" And I was like, "Well, why do you think people are going to hold PulseChain after 1,000x? Why are people buying Ethereum after 1,000x? Why are people buying Bitcoin after 1,000x? The truth is, not everyone did hold. Most of them sold. But in the pTGC and UFO system, there's more incentives to hold long-term than 99% of the tokens that exist. We literally have features within code where people lock up their tokens 10 years, right? We actually help them protect them from themselves via code. Richard Hart created this. This is just an idea that we mimicked off of Richard's design. We also have incentives for holding, right? Most tokens, you do not get paid for holding up the price of the asset. If PulseChain is successful, his question was like, well, there's obviously big players in the system. Why aren't they going to sell? And it's like, some of them will sell. There's no guarantee there. But there's automated functions to buy them out of their positions, the buy and burn, etc. New users flowing in will buy out old users, etc. But even some of the large holders that I know, and they could not do what they say, but they're not going anywhere because they know mathematically when PulseChain becomes successful, the amount of APY that they will be receiving from this asset, they will never even need to sell the asset. They'll just need to sell the APY and their life will be great. They'll just hold the asset in what we believe is a premier store of value, because where else are they going to take it? Were they going to sell it and then pay taxes and go bring it to stocks? If this is outperforming stocks by hundreds fold, and you get paid APY, and you have self-custody, I don't think a large amount of that value is actually going to leave once it's actually proven to do what the code's been designed to do. Because we have to realize 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 60 years down the road, there'll be so much more data to go off of. And if the product's successful, the data is going to be looking awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. And the one thing you didn't, well, none of us predicted, was the fact that PulseChain was going to be this low for this long. But the one thing that this ecosystem has actually been able to capitalize off is the fact that it has been down this low to increase the size of the burnt liquidity pairings between the assets. And like you said earlier in this stream, Mando's end, that it doesn't hold back pTGC and UFO. Like in all other assets, most other assets, having large liquidity makes it harder for that asset to move up, to push up. But because of the way that the mechanics is automated on these two assets, it actually benefits it with the X multiplier.
Yeah, I don't think we have with the successful PulseChain via the X multiplier, I don't think we'll have an issue of X's, right? We've shown we have no issue of X's with literally no X multiplier since the launch of PulseChain, right? We've seen every time PulseChain has moved up 3X, we've moved up 50X. So I personally don't think X's is going to be a problem for our system due to the opportunity Richard created for us. On another blockchain, 100%. If you're built on a blockchain that's already done 1,000X, that's doing 10X moves each cycle, this obviously is an issue to have massive amounts of liquidity. But I think with our system, what it creates for the users who know about it today is the ability to do the X's that they're looking for in their meme tokens, but plus the sustainability at the top, right? And then even once we get to the top, I personally think because of how Hart's Law operates, we could have billions of dollars of liquidity, but also the volatility of a standard asset due to us being connected to Richard's tickers. I don't think the volatility of Richard's tickers are going anywhere, right? I don't think the volatility of most is going anywhere. So constantly, every single day, there will be opportunities, dips, price appreciation, ups and downs. But what our system will be doing uniquely is it will take all of that movement, all of that volatility of the blockchain we're built on, turning that into revenue and injecting that revenue right into the underlying value of the asset, constantly making it slowly creeping up to the upside. Like I've created simulations on Excel of just off of the numbers that we have right now. If we increase all these numbers evenly and you just take the automated functions of buy pressure into the chart, and let's say it's an even amount of buyers and sellers naturally, we actually outperform the base assets by roughly a 3x yearly just from our automated features. This isn't even including the natural buy pressure that would come into an asset if over the long term this becomes true. Because if this becomes true and you have 5 years of data, most likely tons of value will flow into PulseChain just to store in a specific asset like this.
Yeah, the fact that PulseChain has given us this protracted, drawn out bear market, if you will, for multiple reasons, has just massively strengthened the system because of how the system works. So when there's any kind of a reversal, it's going to be a very volatile to the upside reversal, and people are going to be the jaw is going to drop. I mean,
that's what I was trying to say.
A 10x of the mean, a 10x of just the mean, just a 10x of the mean takes us to a $1.4 billion market cap, just like that, and revalues the entire liquidity web, just like that. Now you're moving much more capital.
And that real quick, Mando, we have to realize is Richard's tickers might be not listed on some of the listing sites. They've shown to kind of not list his stuff in the past. But as of right now, pTGC could act as a Trojan horse for all of the Richard Hart cores by getting into those top levels of crypto ranking sites.
Why don't you clarify that statement for me, please?
Yeah. So as of right now, like CoinGecko is a good one. None of Richard's tickers are currently listed properly on CoinGecko, and even last cycle, like Hex wasn't properly listed. They kept it like at 200, and the reason they'd always give is the centralized supply distribution. But I believe that pTGC and UFO, due to them not having the centralized supply distribution and the fact that it's not like a Richard Hart product, it could actually be utilized as a Trojan horse for PulseChain as a whole. Because if we can get pTGC in the top 50 of all crypto assets that exist, we now have an asset that's a PulseChain asset ranking alongside the largest crypto assets in the world. And again, if someone wants to get exposed to pTGC, they have to first get exposed to Richard's assets, PulseChain. which then appreciates Richard's assets. If they even go into pTGC, they're also appreciating Richard's other assets due to Hart's law as well.
Yeah, so Rack, the protocols are properly ranked on CoinGecko, and they actually are properly set up to even change with the buy and burn. So all the tokenomics are proper. So currently now it's ranked 395 on CoinGecko and moving up pretty quick, which, you know, we haven't been treated very well with the RH tickers, but
Right.
that's what.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarity. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I do hope they get ranked properly, though. That's overall I hope that happens, but I tend to try to plan for worst case scenarios. Like, hey, if Richard's tickers don't get listed, let's try to at least get this sub asset listed on these ranking sites, and let's have a alt token that is on PulseChain with this fun alien mascot and theme. Let's have this be in the top 50 of all assets in crypto, and hopefully they let that one fly by just because of it being a separate product. Maybe they could obviously blacklist it as well, just because we're on PulseChain. Like, that's obviously.
Well, yeah, just for clarity's sake. So I'm not going to get into the name yet because it's going to come out very shortly. There is a direct competitor emerging on the market to CoinMarketCap very shortly.
Sorry, you broke up a little bit. Do you say a direct competitor with them coming to the market?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. Correct.
Oh, sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I remember using Nomics back in the day, and it was sweet that.
You talking about, Clay?
Yeah. Clay tried. He tried, and then he died.
Yeah. Real quick, why don't you tell me why that happened? I'm curious from your perspective what you thought it was versus what he told me.
If you're asking me, I don't know why Clay did what he did with Nomics. He properly ranked everything, and then it was almost an immediate walk back, and then he shuttered everything down.
Yep, he did.
I don't know why he did that.
Yeah, that's still wondering to this day, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I have no idea either. To be honest, at that point in my crypto journey, I wasn't even on crypto socials. I was just onboarded by a day one Hex person. So that was where he actually sent me to look at projects and stuff like that on chain. And at that time, Hex was making its way up that list. And then one day I went on it. Once it was far up the list, I think at the time it was third, the site was just down. But I never knew why, because again, I wasn't like on socials to where people talked about that kind of stuff. That was just the one that I used when I first actually started holding Hex.
Right. The baseline code base for it, did you like it? What did you think of the user experience at Nomics real quick? I didn't mean to derail your channel, but you did bring it up.
I thought it was a better UI than even CoinMarketCap, right? Because then after that disappeared, I went to CoinMarketCap, and I felt like it had less feel to it. It felt less good, but it could have just been like the teaching an old dog a new trick is sometimes difficult whenever you get used to something. Like, for an example, I still use MetaMask, even though I hear there's a lot better products out there, just because I'm used to where everything is as well.
I think honestly, man, that it was a lack of capital. It was a lack of funding, because you know, you have to have people using it, advertising on it, and if you don't have a certain amount of money, Clay seemed like a good guy. I'll tell you this: that stuff was all properly ranked.
Yeah, he was integritous. I will give him that. A little mouthy, but yeah, he did it right.
He did.
All right, well, I'm going to leave you gentlemen alone. I didn't mean to do that. I am going to want to get with you boys later on about an OTC discussion, if that would be okay. And beyond that, we can talk later.
Yeah, man. Have a good day.
I did bring someone up, I can't see your full name, Lid Ivers. or something. Did you have a question or anything like that, or are you just hanging out?
I'm just kind of listening, bro, until I hear something that piques my interest, to be honest.
Cool. Yeah, let it just speak up if anything ever comes up. Don't feel like you can't.
I got you, brother. Yeah. I don't want you to feel like I'm engaging farming. I'm here listening, but some of the stuff you guys are saying is way beyond my comprehension. But like I said, if something piques my interest or you make me want to ask something, I will. I'm more of an NFT geek, so I'm kind of just lingering around and seeing where I could interject or provide some utility. But I do always like to give my opinion on stuff, but I just don't have one quite yet.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for coming up. And if something does that you can relate to or you want to add to, feel free to interrupt and add to it.
Yeah, Al, I do a full presentation of pTGC and UFO on my channel twice a week. I'm doing the next one will be tomorrow afternoon, the Prairie Banana on YouTube.
I got you, Banana. I'll follow you, and I'll come check that out tomorrow as well. Thank you.
Cool. You are welcome. There's a question on YouTube from Mayor Will. Many are complaining that there are many whales in pTGC, and because of that, they don't want to get in. Can Zen address this? Yeah.
How about we let Rack address it as well, right? Like,
Good God, man. Yeah, we're long-term holders. That's really, if I'm breaking up, I apologize. The blunt answer is you're going to get that no matter what. Public sentiment's going to be in or out, whether they do like whales or they don't. And we like to live off the interest. We don't buy a token and flip it in 2 or 10x. It's just not something that we do.
Bingo.
well, but,
Thank you.
But not only that, what protocol in the top 100 doesn't have whales, didn't have
Zero.
right up 100x incel,
Yep.
now 90. There's not anything that exists in all of crypto that didn't have early adopters. And so there's no reason to single out one protocol over another protocol. But I will tell you this. When pTGC ran up to a $350 million market cap, the whales, in quotes, were sitting on tens of millions of dollars. Did you see them dumping then?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, it's a riot, man. I would just tell them comfortably and calmly. It's very calm. It's a lot of us have been in since 2011. We've got a couple thousand Bitcoin. A lot of us did 10,000x on Ethereum. A lot of us did 10,000x on Substratum. A lot of us did 10,000x on Hex. And then a lot of us put $40 million into PLS. I don't need the fucking money.
There you go.
I mean, there's whales in everything, man, and not even just coins, like in tokens. Like it's not coin specific. NFT brands have whales too, and it's like you just gotta hope that the whales you got aren't the ones that are gonna eat you up, right? You gotta hope that they keep you guys afloat.
Well, what's more important is this. What's really, really important right now is recognizing what this is. Because if any larger holder decides to relinquish some of their assets back into the pools, all that is an opportunity for larger people, smaller people to buy the asset at a cheaper discounted price.
Yep.
The system is going to continue to do what it's doing. It's going to continue to buy itself off the market and burn existing token supply. That's all that it's programmed to do. The smart contracts don't care. They have no emotions about buying and burning these coins at dips, at highs. It does it constantly. But not only that, the DAO is very smart. So it knows when the tokens are undervalued, and it knows how to take them off the market way faster when it's undervalued, right? Because it's not hard to see when something like this is undervalued. So this thing that keeps coming up, it's like in pTGC, there's people that got in early. There's not a crypto asset on the planet that you couldn't say that about. It doesn't matter if it's Doge or Bitcoin or SHIB or ETH or whatever, but none of those things have the token mechanics like pTGC. pTGC is a brand new version of cryptocurrency. It is a category creating cryptocurrency. There's nothing that Zen talks about that we haven't been sharing every day for 22 months. Legitimate legacy style key performance indicators that people can look at with spreadsheets, break down and show you what's happening. So if somebody dumps, if some whale decides to take $1 million out of the pool and it dumps down 40%, what do you think's going to happen? People are going to buy the tokens back up. Everything's going to rebalance, and it starts again at a brand new floor. That's how this is designed, guys.
That's a good way to look at it, bro.
Yeah, and that whale will have to pay the fee just like everyone else. So they have to support the system and make the foundation for the next group of people that come on later on. They're adding to the buy and burn, they're adding to the LP. So big or small, everyone is supporting the system as they come or leave. And then also within the protocol, there is incentives for whales to hold, right? If you're a whale,
it's
the older
we're not dumping them. That's the bottom line. We're not. Richard's not going to dump. Brent's not going to dump. Audien's not going to dump. I'm not going to dump. Beyond that, I don't know what to tell y'all.
I think Rack's going to have a hard time getting an OTC deal myself.
Yeah, good God. No, because honestly, I'd like to pick up another 100. I'll drop another $250,000 on pTGC. I don't have a beef with that.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, they're the only tokens that are available are in the pools. Outside of that, you're going to have to go to a private.
That's kind of why I said what I said. I didn't think you were going to elaborate on it publicly, but yeah, I need to ape in a little bit more, and now everybody knows. Great job.
Well, trust me, anyone that's been here from the long haul, they know. They just know how the system is, man. You know. Yeah. No, it's just pTGC and UFO from my perspective. I'm not an influencer. If you want an influencer, go to Somi or Hexologist or Roots or any of those guys, and those are your guys. But I'm an entrepreneur, and I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing if you ask me a blunt question. That's the difference.
Yeah, respect that.
Yeah, yep. Well, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question while we got you and you're actually speaking with us. Appreciate it. What do you think about the asset? What do you think about the performance? What do you think? And let's throw all the machismo, all the positioning, just as a crypto guy. What do you think at this point?
As far as the mechanics of the actual technology or your coin, the tokenomics, gamification, and everything, I like the stability based on our internal simulation that Steve ran, and we took an aggressive position accordingly. You built the company, right? I like your communication. You're regularly doing updates. You keep the community updated. I don't feel there's any agiocyprocnomism in your voice, the way you speak, your inflection, it's the package, man. And you sold me and I'm here. That's it. If everybody else would quit building crap, I would put more money in their stuff, but it's junk.
Right on.
Awesome. I just want to give a shout out to the boy. Yeah, blunt to the point.
Mic drop moment.
Liddy, shout out to Liddy. He's got some really good spaces happening now, giving awareness to people outside of PulseChain about what PulseChain's all about. So just a bit of a shout out. It's good to see you here, Liddy. Keep doing your thing. You bring high energy to the space, something that's been missing for the last year or two in PulseChain. So hopefully that high energy is infectious and starts spreading throughout the ecosystem. But he's bringing new investors and discussing with new investors about PulseChain, which is the best thing. So respectfully.
I appreciate that, man. Thanks for the flowers. I feel like, as the NFT guy, I have to be the guy to bring some of the fun over here. And that's what I do. I use the monsters to go to other chains, and I onboard these people with some cool art and some nostalgic feels, right? That 1999 shit. And that's what we're about. Like if the market is 4 years and 3 of those years are red, shouldn't we have more entertainment to keep us balanced and to keep us looking away from the charts? So that's what I'm trying to do. and I'll keep going on spaces. I'll keep going on podcasts, and I'll do like Richard. Remember when he said, you want me to go on spaces and speak? Send me the spaces. You want me to go debate motherfuckers? Bring me them here. I'll do that too, right? So I'm like baby Richard, and I noticed that we need people to speak and we need good vibes while we're doing so. And that's what I provide to the system. Not only cool art and arguably the best NFT collection you guys have, but I also bring the vibes. I bring the Solana bros. I bring all the degens, and I'll go spin the block a couple more times and a couple more times. And maybe we should all do a little bit of that.
Right on, man. Appreciate all the efforts.
Yeah, man, it's a collaborative thing. You know, we're all doing our thing. We all have a utility, and we all provide where we can. And I appreciate everybody else as well.
Do you remember when we capped out at the 350 market cap, what rank we were at, guys? Prairie, you should know this one, man. We were in the top 200, weren't we?
You talking about CoinGecko?
Yes.
I looked that up yesterday. I want to say it was 190, 210. Let me search the chat.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in the top 200, and for some reason I want to say it was even in the 180s on a wick, but I'm not.
Let's see.
So that's what you want to shoot for. Is a lot of people that use CoinGecko are looking at the first page, and then they're looking at the second page, which is kind of that top 200 range, and that's going to be big.
pTGC was number 197 on CoinGecko on February 11th.
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
You bet. There's a question on YouTube. Jonathan Shank asks, how did the 4.4 billion liquid tokens get eaten up? Obviously from buying, but what percentage of buys are pulled out of pTGC liquid tokens? Will there come a time when there are 0 liquid tokens on the pie chart?
Yeah, so for the first part, all of the tokens that are in the debt address, the 03369, have actually been bought and burned. 100% of the supply was put into the liquidity. And then as the system grows, the code and the DAO and UFO are constantly buying and burning the tokens every single day. In the last 24 hours, it's been roughly $11,000 of buy and burns through the pTGC system. Some days are higher than others. It depends on the volume of pTGC. It depends on the volume of PulseChain in general, the volatility of PulseChain in general, and then also the price of the assets that we're connected to. As the assets that we're connected to go up, let's say PulseChain in general goes up 10x, our liquidity will naturally revalue 10x, which then makes it to where market makers need to move 10 times more the amount of value to fix pools, which then increases our buy and burn dollar value by 10x as well. This is kind of expands out evenly as time goes on, plus like the human interaction and stuff, the volatility of the natural market. But that, I think it's currently worth, what, 19 million? I don't know if you can pull that up, Banana, but technically that's $19 million of the supply that has been bought and burned to never re-enter the system. As price goes up, that becomes worth more because each ticker becomes worth more. As price goes down, it obviously becomes worth less because each token becomes worth less. We have to remember, we're currently at the bottom of PulseChain. You know, obviously PulseChain could go more down or a little bit more down, but overall in general, we believe PulseChain has a very large amount of room to run upwards. With just a 10x on PulseChain, that amount of bought and burn supply can very easily $200 million. Right? And that's the power of constantly buying and burning every single day. It will never stop as long as PulseChain exists. Can the supply become 100% bought and burnt? No. As the price of pTGC keeps increasing, the tokens become worth more. So even though we're increasing the dollar amount that's buying and burning, you technically still could be receiving less tokens, and it will keep forcing the price upwards. This is like supply and demand principles 101, until it hits a price that the existing holders are willing to sell at, right? And then that forces the price back down to a cheaper price, but then the code comes in again, day out, and will continuously keep trying to push that price up to ranges that users are willing to sell out. Then it comes back down. But again, we can find ranges like we are right now where it doesn't really look like users are willing to sell. Why? They either think pTGC is about to go on a run, or they think that it should be worth a lot more, and this is just not the price they're willing to let it go at. There's a lot of reasons, right? But technically, no. You cannot buy all the tokens out of the liquidity pool. It will just keep forcing the price up infinitely, and then you also have to think about which holders of the pTGC asset are not even going to let their tokens go into the liquidity pools, because there's, I think, like 40% of the supply that's locked, 30% of the supply that's staked, 20% of the supply that's held. You know what I mean? I'd have to look at the chart, but there's a large portion of the supply that's actually in long-term holders' hands that I don't think a good portion of them are willing to let those tokens hit the market, because those tokens are actually mining themselves value off of the value generation machine. So by holding those assets, they're not only holding an asset that's appreciating over time, that's really scarce, but those tokens are literally paying them daily for doing so. And it's not paying them off of inflation, it's paying them off of value generation. Just like if you were to receive a paycheck of a company offering a service. The service that our system is offering is liquidity to the entire chain. And as the market shifts up and down, we generate revenue off of that, and we pay the holders of our system off of that revenue. So no, you can't get at all of the supply, but as price goes down, the supply burns faster technically. As price goes up, it burns a little bit slower because the price per token is worth a lot more.
Yeah, currently there's 4.4 billion, which is less than 2 whale positions left on the float to even be purchased in liquidity pools. There's 41.8 billion that has been bought and burned, 12.6% of the supply currently. And there's literally 4.4 billion tokens left on the market right now currently. The interesting thing is that we've had a lot of people ask that question. Well, what happens? Is just one day there's not going to be any tokens left, right? No, that's impossible. What happens is that the decimal point on the USD price of the token just keep dropping zeros, and that's exactly what happens until people realize they missed the boat on this.
Yeah, so it's like an infinity type scenario where it just keeps getting smaller and smaller in terms of the percentage.
Just like Bitcoin.
Just like Bitcoin. I was about to say that, man. Exactly like Bitcoin. With the mining. You know what's crazy? If no one really...
Except for us, even crazier than Bitcoin.
Well, the buy and burn, 12%. Right? How do you yeah. But if no one really grasps or believes how strong this asset, or these two assets are. Like, since we started this Space is Cool, I've been monitoring it the whole time. Our all-time high versus PLS has gone from 48% down to 46%. And we've been on this Space is Cool for, what, an hour and a half?
Wow. I actually was looking at, I forget the exact thing, but I was looking at the last time pTGC passed these prices on the chart throughout history. And if you go back a year, that was like the first time we've passed these prices. And then there's a few other times. Every single time pTGC has passed this price, PulseChain has been less and less and less and less. So what that tells me is we've repassed this price like 4 times now, but PulseChain has been worth less and less and less, which in turn means pTGC has been worth more and more and more compared to the PulseChain asset. I personally believe PulseChain is about to go. And when PulseChain goes, it's going to revalue this whole entire system to a new level. And either people are going to be exposed to what this machine is because the machine will be turned on to a higher level and that will bring in more value, or people will take profits, right? We have no idea what that event occurs. But previously, what happens is when PulseChain revalues in price, we've seen this a couple times now, that inflow of value to on-chain, a portion of that makes its way to the assets in our web, like our value, and then another portion of that makes its way to pTGC as being a unique product on this chain, which has given us a massive X multiplier against the blockchain, right? So with the success of the blockchain, it equals value flowing into the chain. A portion of that goes into pTGC, which then makes us have an X multiplier over it. We are currently at the bottom of this event. In the last 3 times that PLS has hit these lows, when it finally has moved up, that has actually marked the lowest point to get in that range, right? Because pTGC has created higher lows over and over and over again off of the bottoms of PulseChain. And we're currently in the bottom right now, which should be marking the lows of pTGC if PLS goes on a run here soon, which I personally believe it will. I think where we are in the market, interest rates should be getting cut soon. ETH looks like it's about to run. Every time ETH ran, PulseChain came to follow. pTGC came to follow as well. And then even with the next retracement, if you study the path of pTGC, it retraced nowhere near where the lows were previously. So it could be in general like, hey, last call to get on the ship before it takes off.
I'm cutting it real quick. I did talk to Giovanni. He works up at Fox News. He's one of the political analysts there, but his wife does the financial stuff. And from what they're hearing, it looks like the rate cut's going to be another 3 to 4 months.
Interesting.
Most likely September.
I wonder if Trump's going to get Bell out of there.
God.
At this point, it's obvious manipulation. Anyone with a brain would have.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, if you follow data like from Trueflation, for example, we've been below their 2% target many times, several times. So definitely should have a rate in July, but if it doesn't happen, you're looking at September, like they're saying. So definitely some political bias or manipulation or whatever you want to call it there, as they keep moving the goalposts for this interest rate cut.
Zan, I gotta scoot. I gotta scoot in just a few minutes.
Yeah, I can do a last call. We've been going for 2 hours now. It's Saturday. I'm sure everyone wants to do something with their family and their kids and stuff like that. So if anyone has any last words that they wanna give or last questions, feel free to. You got anything on YouTube, Banana, before we go?
Nothing on YouTube.
You know, I want to say this. I just want to say this. In crypto, especially on PulseChain, there's been a lot of angst. I really just want to invite everybody that hears the recording. Remove all of your bias. Remove all of your preconceived information in your mind and just look at what the Grace currency, what this new type of cryptocurrency has been doing on PulseChain. Forget about if some whales got in the beginning and look at what is happening with this cryptocurrency. Listen to what Zen is telling people. Look, get with Prairie, get in the VCs, ask all of your questions. We'll talk to people like Rackham, who are obviously VC level people. We don't shy away from anything. And what you're seeing is the smart people, the smartest people on chain are coming to pTGC. Why? It's not because of some hype. It's not because of some KOL. It's not because of B Roots or Ian or myself or anybody else. Yes, we've all played our part in sharing. You know what's funny is that when we share, we get, like yesterday, I had a comment that came in, and this is just for mindset, guys. Oh, you shilled the top. You shilled the top, Mando. Look at the top. You were shilling it at the top. Well, why don't you mention that I was talking about it at 100,000 and 200,000 and 1 million and 2 million, 3 million and 4 million? I was talking about it every single day since launch. So there's a lot of preconceived stuff out there, but what'll end up happening is you could potentially miss something life-changing because of whatever it is that you've got going on. instead of just looking at the key performance indicators, looking at the data, looking at the DeFi information, looking at the liquidity pools, looking at the volume, looking at the revenue that's being generated. Those are the things that people should be paying attention to, right? Because I'm telling you, Zen is basically blowing the trumpet right now, and we study this every single day, that with just a blip on the radar of PulseChain, pTGC is going into the billions of dollars of market cap. Not because we're saying it, but because that's how the math just works, right? And it's at $135 million market cap, and it's the best thing on PulseChain. There's nothing that even comes close, in my opinion. And people need to take very, very serious look at what this is at this point. Because if PulseChain starts to go, everything in the liquidity web of the pTGC and UFO ecosystem is going to revalue. The amount of liquidity, the amount of capital associated to this system is going to be massive at that point. And the people who are in now will have locked themselves into that working capital that's constantly working for the system. So please, guys, throw all your bias out the freaking window and look from an objective standpoint at what this is and see if you can't make a choice for yourself.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I definitely have heard a few times that, people have shied away from pTGC just because they've seen it for the last 2 years and they didn't get into it a year ago or a year and a half ago. So emotionally, they're telling themselves they can't get into it 2 years later. The thing that I say is the opportunity that's here right now is a lot different than the opportunity that was there 2 years ago. There's so much more data to look after. The fact that it's actually done what it's been designed to do. The holder count is higher, the liquidity is higher, the burnt liquidity is higher. So there's way less risk. But the thing is I get emotionally, you're saying, hey, you don't want to get involved because you knew about it earlier. A lot of people said this about Bitcoin at $1,000, at $500.
100%.
I knew about Bitcoin at $13. I'm not buying it at 100. But really, that would have been really smart for them to buy it at 100. The thing is when new value starts flowing into PulseChain, they're not going to have an emotional opinion about knowing about this product a year and a half earlier, because they didn't. They're going to get here on this blockchain, and they're going to just be looking for what the best product is on chain. And most likely, it's going to be what's in our web, right? It's going to be PulseX, Hex, Pulse, Inc. And then I also will throw pTGC and UFO into those categories because they are proven. They're not going to have an emotional opinion on this, and you can either get on the train or just get left at the station. It's up to you, but try to pull the emotions out of it. I know that it is hard to see something go up for 2 years straight, but that just proves how strong the machine is actually, and you have more data to look at now. The new people that do come into PulseChain, they're not going to have those emotions like you. So they're not going to be going through that. Do I get in? I've watched this for 2 years. That will be the first week they're seeing it. Again, this is the same for Bitcoin, right? When people found out about it at $1,000, they weren't thinking about the people who missed out on the opportunity at $16. They were thankful for the opportunity to find it at 1,000, and it worked out very well for them. I personally think this system mathematically has been designed in a way to operate even better with the success of the blockchain that it's built on. There is risk involved there, right? We're in a very speculative play. There is risk, understand that risk factor. Over time, the risk will become less and less and less as it evolves into a premier store of value, if it becomes a premier store of value. But today there's a different risk curve, but with that risk could create massive upside potential to your own personal portfolio. Real quick, there's 3 hands raised. Please make the questions be about pTGC, UFO, or PulseChain. We do have to shut this down soon, and I don't have a lot of time to talk about other things. So,
Zach, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Yes.
Dan. What's up, man?
Okay. How's it going, guys? I just wanted to add one thing to Mando's point, and I made a video about this the other day, real quick. But it is not just on PulseChain. pTGC is not just the best token on PulseChain. PTGC is one of the best tokens in all of crypto right now. And you might be saying, oh,
Amen.
you're just shilling your bag. Well, let's look at the facts. I mean, if you look at crypto bubbles, year to date, PTGC is up 2,000%. And if you look at the rankings from 3 to 400, the only thing higher than that is Nero there. And if you go from 100 to 200 in the rankings, there's only like 3 or 4 coins. So the PTGC is top 10 in the biggest gainers for the entire year. As far as like it's seriously moving up in all of crypto, not just in the PulseChain ecosystem. This thing is outperforming coins in all different blockchains. So when people think, don't be so close-minded, and new people that are not in PulseChain, something special is happening in here. And if PulseChain's a success, PTGC is going to be even bigger success. And that's what we confidently say, that this thing is going to top 50, top 25, especially with PulseChain success. And you will find nothing like the tokenomics, nothing like the liquidity bonding in all of crypto. So it's not just PulseChain, peeps. This is special in all of crypto. This is innovation. This is something new, original. It's got the meme coin lore, and it has tokenomics, and it has a machine built in place that it's already done. There's really no way someone can copy it unless they come in with tens of millions of dollars to even try. But we have such a strong community that this is something special, not just in PulseChain, in all of crypto.
So true. Great video, by the way, Ian. Thank you for creating it.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, and the guys raising their hand, go ahead.
Hey, do I have the mic?
Yes.
Quick question here. Hey, PulseChain question. Trying to do bridge on my Mac, and I'm getting a custom RPC. So I'm unable to take my ETH and convert it to Pulse, right, to get into PTGC. And then, so I'm saying, do you guys recommend Liberty Swap, or what do you guys do on the bridge? Because I'm stuck.
So me personally, I've never used Liberty Swap. I've seen some really good things about it. I've just been using the original PulseChain bridge for the last 2 years. As far as RPC, would you know what that is, Mando, by chance?
Yeah, it's saying that it's not responding. You got to add a custom URL. So I've never had to do that before. So
yeah, so you want to go to pulsechain.com, and the information is right on the website there. The actual custom RPC.
Oh, okay.
To add it to your MetaMask wallet.
Yeah, it's very.
You can literally just do a Google search and just.
Yep.
I mean, a YouTube search, and it'll show you exactly how to do it.
It's very simple. And then I've used Liberty Swap. It's quick. It's easy. It works. You can come in from like 40 plus L1s straight over to PulseChain. You might have to flip into USDC first.
If you want to send me, Mando, a DM, I'd be more than happy to try to help you walk off of it after we get off. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to navigate you through it if you need something. What's the next question, Zen?
Yeah, it's not a question. I'm just want to introduce myself to the community. I'm very new to the crypto space, and I just, I'm a tattoo artist and I've been new to NFTs. I've been doing tattoos and turning them to NFTs, and I'm pretty much created a new marketing system. And
yeah, brother, we apologize, man, but this is a PTGC and UFO space, and we're at the tail end of it right now.
Yep.
So we can't have any shills or anything like that going on at the moment. Sorry about that, man.
Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good, man. I appreciate you coming in, but yeah, we've got Zen. He's got to get back to his family. We're trying to close out with people with questions on the actual protocol at the moment.
And if anybody has any questions about the ecosystem, I do a complete walkthrough. I'll be doing that tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. Pacific on my channel, The Prairie Banana. Zen, you ready to shut it down?
I did. Do we have anybody else? I saw Marky. I thought Marky Mark was raising his hand. Was he?
Real quick, man. I had something to say, and it's Liddy. It's not a question. This is more of a call to action. If you guys love what Grays are doing, what PTGC is doing, right? anything on chain that's really for the people and it's not a scam and has good folks building it, hit that RT, guys. Don't just come in here and put your feet up. This shit ain't time to party yet. We got to keep pushing in that fucking work, and we got to show people that we support everybody, right? Stop being fucking lazy. If you like something, like it enough to retweet and share that shit because somebody else might have not seen it yet, right? Don't be fucking greedy with the retweets. That's all I got to say. This should be bullshit sometimes, guys. I'm sorry.
Well said.
Appreciate it.
I got my question answered. Thanks, Marky Mark. Appreciate it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, Mark, Marky Mark, hit up Mando if you have any other questions. You can also go to our TG and we can help you out there as well if you need any more help getting over. So Mando offered. So thank you, Mando, for making that offer. He's been in this space for a very long time, and I'm sure he'll be able to work with you to get you through.
I just sent you a DM, man. I'd be more than happy to get to actually take a phone call over X real quick and walk you through how to do it.
Yeah. Other than that, everyone who came up, thanks for coming in and asking your questions, showing the support. Rackham, thank you for coming in today and adding to the conversation. I really do appreciate it. It really does mean a lot to me. I've spent the last 4 years of my life working on this system, working on this protocol. So getting interest from people like you does mean a lot to me. Ian, thank you for coming in. And again, thanks for that video yesterday. That video was really well done and professional. If you haven't seen that video, it's quick, short, and fun. Go and check it out. Give it a retweet. Give it a like. Value should start to be flowing into ETH, should start be flowing into PulseChain, which then should be starting to flow into pTGC here soon. But we do have to keep in mind that by us being loud, by us showing how powerful our community is, it helps more of that value make its way to PulseChain and pTGC. So right now is probably the time to put in a little bit of extra work for your bags. Obviously, you don't have to, but it definitely feels like a good time to do it to me. So if you can, like anything like that, it does help your bags. So,
yeah, Rack, I want to thank you for coming in too, man. It's good to have you actually come in and speak. Ian, awesome video. B Roots, got a shout out for B Roots, man. The ultimate PulseChain shiller. Trevor, Gugod, Crypto Stylist, Snowflake, Shaka, everybody. Thanks for coming in. This is a great space to retweet and to get it out there so everybody can take a look at the conversation. And go enjoy the fam, guys.
All right, see ya.
See you guys. Great space. I think there's more coming. I think we're going to have more spaces. I didn't even retweet it this morning. I didn't even put it in the Telegram like I was supposed to. So, but Monday, I think what we need to do is encourage people to retweet it like as soon as, right from the go. So anyhow, guys, have a great weekend and jump into my stream. If you're new, jump into my stream tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. I do a complete ecosystem walk through in about 90 minutes or so. Thanks. See y'all.